So when we have these big traumatic reactions, what's happening is the right side of our brain is taking over, and it feels like this is happening here and now. So when we do walk and talk therapy, we're moving, we're connecting the right side of our brain to the left side of our brain. And we are allowing our brain to say, okay, this happened in the past. This is a memory. This isn't happening here and now. I am safe now. I am okay. And so it allows our body to connect and process that and gets us unstuck.
We are Gold Ivy.
Our mission is to empower you to own and unleash your truth.
Stories of resiliency are gold, and ivy grows in hard places.
Those hard places are what creates space for light to shine through.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production. Who wants to know what I discovered that's an absolute game changer with my hormones, stress level, and quality of my sleep? I am not one to talk about supplements, but after learning all about magnesium, I have to fill you in. In May of last year, I tested my hormones, and my doctor explained to me that most women are deficient in magnesium, how important magnesium is, and how the brand of magnesium matters. First, magnesium is involved in hundreds of biochemical reactions in your body. Cortisol regulation, take magnesium. Better sleep, magnesium. Muscle soreness and recovery, magnesium. Combat depression and anxiety, magnesium. The list of magnesium's benefits go well beyond those examples. I asked for the best brand of magnesium, and my doctor said hands down, Smidge. She prefers Smidge because it's super clean and made in small batches. No fillers or common allergens, and non-GMO. Smidge's magnesium is made with a premium form of magnesium called glycinate complex. After taking the 100 milligram capsule of Smidge Evening Magnesium every night for just a week, I noticed how much better I felt in the morning. Melatonin and other sleep aids can make me groggy or give me weird dreams. Smidge's magnesium has improved my energy levels, reduced my anxiety, and my digestive health has never been better. I do my best to take it every single night to keep reaping all the benefits. I'm telling you, Smidge Magnesium is a game changer. The majority of adult women are deficient in magnesium, and we don't want you to be one of them. To experience the health benefits of Smidge Evening Magnesium as soon as possible, go to getsmidge.com or find the link in the show notes and be sure to use code GOLDIVY10 for a 10% discount. That's getsmidge.com and code GOLDIVY10 at checkout, and let us know how great Smidge Magnesium makes you feel as well.
Hey everyone, Brooke here. One of my biggest goals for 2025 is to improve my energy, and I know I'm not alone in that. I also know I'm not alone in what I'm about to say next. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing I look forward to is my morning cup of coffee. What I don't look forward to is how much I rely on it to get me through the day and the stomach upset and crashes that come with it. I know it's hard on my hormones, energy, and stress levels, but man, is it a hard habit to break. Can anyone else relate? I want quick and easy, and I want energy. Saying goodbye completely to caffeine is out of the question for me, but trying it in a new way, that I'm open to. So let me tell you about my new obsession, Everyday Dose. Would you believe me if I told you my new morning cup of energy includes the following, and all in one simple scoop? We've got L-theanine, an amino acid that works to increase focus, balance insulin levels, metabolism, and lower stress and cortisol. We've got low acidity coffee extract. Finally, coffee that doesn't give me a stomach ache. Collagen protein to improve my gut health, skin, and nails. Chaga, a type of mushroom that supports immune system. And my favorite, lion's mane, a natural nootropic that helps reduce brain fog and boost my mood. In addition to it being the easiest and most effective morning routine, it's free of artificial sweeteners, additives, mycotoxins, and mold. I feel at ease knowing what's going in my body, all while feeling energized, calm, and focused all day. Check out their coffee starter kit. It comes with free gifts every month like a frother, gunmetal spoon, breathwork app, and more. Join Andrew and myself as we start our year and all 365 days with Everyday Dose. Visit everydaydose.com/goldivy and get your coffee starter kit delivered straight to your door. Use our code GOLDIVY to get up to 30% off your first order.
And now to this episode of the Ivy Unleashed podcast. Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a therapy chair here in the room. Heather Brown is here. Welcome to Ivy Unleashed.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and Heather's brilliant because we have these really uncomfortable chairs when people are in house, and like literally guests have been like, my butt is numb and sore. Can I like get up mid?
We've taken recording breaks. Yeah, mid-recording.
Yeah. So Heather's like, local, our kids play soccer together, and they're both little defenders, the best defenders in Minnesota, right? And I got to know Heather on the sideline and learning that she started her own business. And we're so excited to talk about this because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. That's what May is. And so we're diving in. We love talking with therapists about what they've seen with their clients, why they started their practice, what's unique about their practice, because I think there's a therapist for everyone. And sometimes you want to hear more about it, hear some stories. What would that work look like? So we're so happy you're here. And we love hearing why you got into this work. You know, you have a master's in marriage and family therapy, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Which is like, oh, I can't wait to ask you a million questions about this. But we want to hear why you decided to get into that work, kind of what your career path looked like and why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, so I think if you had met me in my early 20s, I would not say that marriage and family therapy is where I was headed. I originally, coming out of college, my goals were to get a job in corporate America, work there for a couple of years, and then transition into taking over my family's business. So my family had a business, and that was kind of like my long-term goal. But back in you mentioned our kids, right? Mm-hmm. So I had a son in 2015, and in 2016, so about 2 weeks before his first birthday, I found a lump in my breast and was confused by that and went to the doctor. I was like, can't be too much. It's not going to be a big deal. I was breastfeeding at the time, and that's how I found it. Okay. And went to the doctor, and she's like, let's get this checked out. Sent me in, got a biopsy. Within 2 days, found out that I had breast cancer. So that kind of full stop on my life. Did all of the things, we did 16 rounds of chemo. I had a mastectomy. I was lucky enough, didn't have to do radiation, but that kind of became like my focus. And within that, I ended up, I probably finished treatment in early part of 2017. But my doctor was concerned because I was so young. So I was 30 when I was diagnosed. And it was a triple negative breast cancer. So it's not there's different types of breast cancer. Triple negative is not based on your hormones, right? So it's not reacting to estrogen or different hormones in your body. And so it tends to be a more aggressive form of cancer. So my oncologist was like, we really need to do something more. Now that you're done with treatment, I want you to try some other types of treatment to just make sure that we can get you as far as we can without you having cancer again. Mm-hmm. So I started immunotherapy, which is a newer way to treat cancer, where basically what they do is they give you medication that goes in and trains your immune system to recognize and fight cancer. So it can kind of stop that cancer growth before it starts. So I started that, and then in January of 2018, I went in for one of my treatments, and part of it was that I had to go in, do blood work. They checked my blood, and then I would go and have my treatment the following day. So I went in for my treatment. I had done blood work the day before, and my doctor came into the office, and she was like, hey, so we're not going to do treatment today. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, we think you have leukemia. And I was like, okay. So it was utter chaos. I had to go home, tell my husband within...
Wait, they think you do? They don't know you do?
No. So I had, when they took my blood, because it was just my regular blood check to make sure that my blood levels were in line to be able to take the immunotherapy. And so when they took my blood, my white blood cell counts were, I don't want to over exaggerate, significantly higher than they were supposed to be. And so she's like, this isn't normal. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of different things. Maybe we got... And I had just had my blood tested 3 weeks before, and my blood was perfect 3 weeks before. So she's like, maybe we got the vials mixed up at the blood. this is just, it is very bizarre and we don't know what's going on, but we need to investigate further. So she basically had me go through, redid my blood and sent me home and said, we'll be in touch. We'll call you tomorrow and let you know kind of what our plans are.
How was your night of sleep?
Like non-existent.
Gosh, I just like think about this as a person trying to live your life and you have a baby or toddler at this point home.
And you just went through chemo, a mastectomy, and all of that.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, my husband, I came home and told him I was a mess. He thought I hit a bird. He was like, what's wrong? Did you hit something? I'm like, no, I have cancer again. So he crashed. He basically laid on the floor and was comatose. I started puzzling and have been puzzling ever since.
Okay.
I love a good puzzle.
Yeah. For some reason, something about that like gave me a purpose, something to focus my energy on, but I didn't have to think. So it just, I sat down and did a wolf puzzle. I remember very vividly like what I did during that time. And then the next day we ended up pulling my kid from, he was in daycare at the time. So we pulled him from daycare. We went to the Children's Museum and just wandered around and had a family day as we waited for the doctors to call us back and tell us what was going on. So I did ultimately have leukemia, and that ended up being, I mean, my doctor said the type of leukemia I had was very aggressive, and she said, I want to send you to the hospital right now. Like, I shouldn't have let you leave that day. You should have gone directly in an ambulance to the hospital, and we should have started treatment. And I was like, well, I have a lot to do this week, and that's not going to work. I had, my husband's best friend was getting married. One of my best friend's dad had passed away. There was too much going on, and I was like, I'm not going to the hospital. And she's like, okay, I'll make a deal with you. You can not go into the hospital, but if you have any of these symptoms, like full stop, go straight to the emergency room and let them know what's going on, and we need to start treatment right away.
Did you have any symptoms?
No. I mean, a little bit. I was bruising really easily. So I kept having bruises. I'm like, I have no idea where these came from. And then I was really tired, more tired than normal, but otherwise, like, nothing else would have tipped me off to it. I mean, if I hadn't been doing the immunotherapy treatment, I don't know. We obviously caught it very early because I had blood work done 3 weeks before. Everything was fine. 3 weeks later, my blood was all crazy. So thankfully, I was having those regular checkups. But yeah, so then I ended up in the hospital. I had to spend a month there the first time around. And then from there, originally I was going to do 2 years of chemotherapy, but because I had so much chemotherapy with the breast cancer, they said, we can't do that. Your body can't handle that much chemo. So I ended up having a bone marrow transplant. Wow. Yeah. So kind of through all of that, I mean, that was a lot in kind of 2 years. I physically handled it all okay. Mentally, I did well. Up until, like, with breast cancer, I really, really struggled once I was done with treatment. There is this time where you go through treatment, you have to, like, you kind of just put on this tough face, you go, and then you get done with treatment, and everyone's like, woohoo, let's celebrate, let's go on and live your life. And you just sit there going, oh my God, what just happened to me? Yeah. And I remember standing in my bedroom with my husband and son leaving. They were heading off to daycare, and like I just was sobbing, and I didn't know why I was so sad. And I didn't do the work. I didn't focus on my mental health at all through all of that. So I ended up start working with a therapist after that. Didn't love her. She wasn't great, and just didn't have like an understanding of what it was like to have this medical diagnosis and just the trauma that goes with this medical diagnosis. So when I was diagnosed with leukemia, I was like, okay, I need to do better this time. Like, I need to have a plan. So I incorporated, while I was in the hospital, I had a social worker that I worked with that was phenomenal, and she took great care of me. She checked in with me. We met weekly. My husband sat in on those with me as well. He got support that he needed. And then I told him, I'm like, you also need to find a therapist that can help support you through this, because this is just
a lot.
Yeah, bonkers what we're going through. So he ended up working with a phenomenal therapist as well, who then, when I got done with all of my leukemia treatment and all of that, I ended up going with her and working with her as well. And she never had like a chronic illness, but she had worked in the hospital system. So she had a very good understanding of what it looks like to be impacted by a medical trauma like this. So after I was done with my leukemia treatment and working with her, I realized like I need a life change. I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I want to do something different. And I just had this calling to get my degree in therapy, become a therapist, and work with people who have experienced medical trauma and really make that a focus. Since I have such a, unfortunately, like great understanding of it, I felt like I could really support people in a way that's different, that other therapists, as much as they might have a knowledge of trauma, might not necessarily understand kind of the unique nuances of medical trauma.
And the fact that you have that experience is what makes you great at what you do. That connection. I'm just thinking of the therapy experience I've had. There is a disconnect because I can tell you everything I've gone through, but unless you have that lived experience, I just think there's that disconnect. So how beautiful that you're taking your trauma, serving others and helping others.
Yeah.
What has that done for your mental health?
It's amazing. I honestly love what I do and getting to work with people and to help and support people in that. I don't typically lead with, hey, I've had cancer with my clients. That's not usually the first thing that I share. But the clients that I do work with who have had or are going through cancer or some sort of, tricky medical diagnosis, as we get talking, they end up looking at me somewhere along the line and go, wait, you've been there, you get this, don't you? You've had something. And then I usually I do always share if they ask that question. But yeah, it definitely gives you a different way of working with people and connecting with people to have had those experiences.
Yeah. I always read people's bios before I choose a therapist or choose one for my children. And I love that, reading through your website and learning about your different specialties, which we want to get into. I think it's really important to do that with your therapist because whether or not you relate on something, just to feel like you understand a little bit about the person that's going to be talking with you, because you do need to trust them. You need to know, like, and trust them, right? But it's a stranger. And so I would encourage anybody that, we want to talk to you about starting therapy if you don't or considering it. And I like to read the bios first because then I feel like, oh, I know this lady a little bit, or I can ask her about it, or it might make your kid feel more comfortable to know something about the person. And so I love that you share that. And we want to talk about what you specialize in. So clearly this is a specialty, but we want to talk about walking therapy, walk and talk therapy, because I maybe had heard of this before, but reading about this on your website, learning about it from you, and just the benefits, obviously, of being outside. We want to get into that. So how did walking therapy become part of your specialties and what you do?
Yeah. So I started therapy the traditional way, right? Like going in, I was in an office, there was the chair or the couch and then me in a chair, and we had those interactions with clients. And I love doing that type of therapy. I've done telehealth and I still do telehealth and I love that. But I was getting to a point where like my body hurt. So as a therapist, we spend 50 minutes back to back to back to back. And I am a terrible therapist because I do not stick to that 50 minutes. I oftentimes will bump to 55 minutes, which then means I have a 5-minute break between one client to the next, which I usually use to run to the bathroom, fill my water, and sit back down. And so I was spending so much time in darkly lit rooms, nice music, smells, all of that. Like it felt very therapeutic and good, but my body hurt.
Good for them for their 50 minutes, but not for you all day.
Right. Exactly. Yes. And in all honesty, like I would have clients that would come in, and as much as therapy is good, a lot of clients feel anxious going into therapy, right? And you can see that energy just kind of building in them. And it takes a while for clients a lot of times to settle down and feel comfortable. And I agree with you 100%. Like you have to feel good with your client. And if there's one thing to take away from today, it is, if you go into a therapy session and your therapist is not a good fit, I know it's a pain in the butt to find a new therapist, but do it because you are not going to get the change. You are not going to have the experience that you want if you don't connect with your therapist. Yeah. So that is like number one, you got to make sure you find somebody that you connect with and that you trust and can you don't want to dread going to therapy each week. So yeah, I was feeling uncomfortable, and I was having clients come in that sometimes were just way too anxious, and I was like, let's go for a walk. Let's get out of here. And I would take them and we would go for a walk, or I had a client come in who had just had a really traumatic experience, and I was like, you can't sit here. Like, we're not going to sit in this room. You need to move your body. So we went out and walked and talked. And I had heard of walk and talk therapy, and it's practiced more out on the West Coast. Okay. And I wasn't sure how it would work here in Minnesota, being that we're cold and icy and snow and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I was just kind of had this desire to start this. And so it was May of last year. So we're coming up on a year that I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to start my own practice. I'm going to go for working for myself, and I am going to do walk and talk, and I'm not going to have an office space. I'm going to just either meet with people virtually, or I am going to do walk and talk therapy. And I shared that with all of my clients that I was seeing. I was shocked at how many decided to do it. And so many of my clients that have transitioned from, an in-office therapy to walk and talk are like, I won't go back. This is awesome. So it's been great.
That's so cool. Is there anything that's different other than that you're not sitting in the room? Like, I'm just thinking of the logistics of it and what to expect if you are interested in trying it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that's different, right? So obviously, instead of sitting in a room face to face where we're just kind of staring at each other, and in reality, like, the way therapy rooms are set up is not typical to how we have conversations, right? Very rarely do we sit down in a room and, sit face to face, direct eye contact with another person. Like, that's just not typically how we converse. You go over to somebody's house, people are buzzing around, you're moving, you're walking side by side with each other. So I think that's one of the big differences is that instead of sitting there looking at me face to face, we're walking side by side. We aren't having this like forced eye contact. We're glancing back and forth. We're looking at the world around us. We're looking at the trees. I'm a birder. I really like birds.
So is Brooke.
Couldn't be me.
She's deathly afraid of birds. So funny.
Okay, so maybe you wouldn't want to go on
I love birds. I want a bird in my house. Like, I am.
Okay.
And then she's going to be a solopreneur. No business partner for her. Or we just won't work out at this house anymore. Anyways.
I love birds. I don't know that I need one in my house, but I like to look at them outside.
Okay. Yeah, I like a good cardinal.
We're
that
like a triangle here. We're like a triangle. I'll take it.
Yeah. So that's I think a big difference is that you're not sitting there. You're not that direct eye contact. You are walking side by side. You're taking in the surroundings. One thing that does get jeopardized is confidentiality. So you don't get the same level of confidentiality as you do in a traditional therapy setting.
Because people might hear. Is that why?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can't
see you.
Yeah. So there's times where, and this has happened with me where I've been out walking with a client and we come upon somebody that they know and we just do a quick, hey, how's it? And we talk about that ahead of time, right? Okay. So people know what to do if we were to run into somebody that this is how we're going to handle it. And I let the client lead, right? Mm-hmm. Some people don't care. Hey, this is my therapist. And some people are like, this is my friend. And we just keep walking.
Be like, you should take her card. She's great.
Like, I'd be like, if I was walking and I saw a friend, this is my therapist, and we're walking together, I'd be like, I got to get me one of those.
Good for you. I'd be like, go, yeah.
Yeah. And some people are, and some people are like, not so much. Yeah. So that is one piece that you definitely sacrifice. In all honesty, though, people are so absorbed in their own world. Like them walking by, they're not listening to us. They have their headphones in. They're having their own thoughts. There are times where I will pass the same person on a trail, but with different clients. And so I sometimes wonder if that person is catching that and going like, who is this lady that's just walking with these random, like, what is going on? I've seen her with 3 different people today. But then I wonder, what are you doing out there for 3 hours on a trail? So, I mean, there's,
Fair.
So yeah, there's definitely some give and take in that, but the benefits, I think, way outweigh the what's the word I'm looking for? The
drawbacks.
Thank you.
Something I think about is we both have done 75 hard, and the most powerful piece for our mental health was the fact that we had to get outside, because it's one of the workouts has to be outside. And it's like, we know this. We know it's good to get outside. But, you know, a lot of our jobs are inside at our desk, at our computer. And so let's just talk about the mental health benefits of getting outside. Because I'm just thinking, you pair that with therapy, like,
Game over.
what?
It's amazing.
Who am I going to become in this? You know? And so what are the mental health benefits of just simply getting outside, first of all, and then pairing it with therapy?
Yeah. I'm going to have to like pare down. Like, there's so many benefits that it's hard to narrow it down. But I am a learner by trait. I love to learn. And so this is one of those things where I'm like, okay, I love studies. I love to know what are the facts. How do we know that this is good for us? And there was a really interesting study done. Have you guys heard of forest bathing?
Yes.
Okay. So
We need to do that.
You were so excited
Sorry.
about that.
I think about forest bathing and I think about those people that go out in the forest and scream and let all their anger out. Like, I want to try everything. We're also learners. So, yeah.
yeah. So forest bathing is more common in Japan, right? And they've done a lot of research about why is this beneficial? Why does this help? And there was a medical school in Japan that decided that they were going to research this topic. And what they did is they took several business people out into a retreat into the forest, right? They were there for 3 days, and they measured their blood before and they measured their blood after. And they were looking at cortisol. They were looking at, well, it doesn't matter, but they were looking at 3 different things, right? One of the things that they were specifically looking at was our natural killer immune cell, which is a white blood cell that is designed, its whole purpose in life is to go around and keep our nervous system safe, right? So that natural killer cell goes in, looks for diseases, it looks for cancer cells, and it basically zaps them and makes them go away. So they started measuring that, and they, like I said, they took the guys out into the woods 3 days. After 3 days of being in the woods, they measured their blood, and they saw a 40% increase in the natural killer cell. So 40% increase, huge.
Yeah.
7 days later, they still had that 40% increase. 30 days later, there was still a 15% increase in their NK cells. So just the impact alone that has on our nervous system is huge. They then wanted to say, okay, so does this just have to do with these walks in the woods, or can this get replicated in urban settings? They went through and did the same study in an urban setting. Nothing.
Ooh.
So what that tells us is nature, being outside with trees, is so important for helping our nervous system, our immune system, in healing and keeping it strong.
Wow.
I think you just ask anyone, when you're outside in nature, how do you feel? And it's a no-brainer. Everyone knows they feel better. And then you pair that with, how do you feel when you release and you talk about things, you get an action plan, you have support, you have someone that's listening. And I think what you said earlier, the walking side by side of I'm right there with you. It's not a power dynamic of I'm sitting there taking notes. But with that, how do you take notes?
I don't. No, I don't. I usually, like when I get in my car, when I'm done, I'll take a bunch of notes if I need to.
You also retain more information when you're moving. So I'm sure just in your position, you retain so much more.
And not just outside to the movement piece, because movement for me is where I am the most creative. And I've talked about this a lot, but I will I wish I had a note taker that could run next to me so I don't have to like get out my phone or like
I do too.
Snapchat Brooke. Because I'll be like, Brooke, I have this awesome business idea. And it's always when I'm moving. Like there's just something about creativity, ideas that come when you're up and moving. And so it's like, it's movement. You're outside. And then the fact that you're a trained therapist. And I love that you're marriage and family. And so I'm curious how that plays if like you're going to have a marriage session with a couple, like is one on each side of you walking, and how does that work?
Sometimes. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm right in the middle. Sometimes I often will kind of like float in between and be in the middle, one side, the other side. You know, I have a couple of different couples that I work with that will do walk and talk with me. Some of them like we go for a walk. Others, they like to just meet at a park bench, or not a park bench, but like a picnic table. And we'll sit at a picnic table and meet. And again, that's still just really nice because you're outside, you're hearing the birds, you've got nature all around you. That feels really good. But yeah, it's definitely doable. I don't have as many couples that do walk and talk, but I definitely have some.
Yeah.
It gets tricky when they get mad at each other and they both kind of like, one walks faster and one walks slower. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I bet. I'm thinking about people that are like, okay, I think I want to do marriage counseling. I've never done it. I'm considering it. Do you suggest that the couple each do their own individual therapy and together with you or with another therapist? Like, how do you kind of start that, or how would you suggest people start that?
Keeping the flu and common cold out of your household is important whether you're 5, 35, or 95. And we're going to tell you the easiest and most delicious way to do just that. It's with All Things Elderberry, a woman-owned business that has all-natural, vegan-friendly, and gluten-free elderberry products.
And when we say products, we mean a variety of delicious and beautiful products, not just for you, but for your entire household to get an immunity boost. If we had to pick our favorite product, I'm going with organic elderberry gummies. My kids are obsessed. We're trying to avoid sickness from school and make sure they can participate in their sports. So they take one every morning before they brush their teeth. They think the gummies taste like a mix of grape and cotton candy. I tried them too, and I can see why they ask for them every day. I love that they're boosting their immune system at the start of their day.
My favorite All Things Elderberry product is the elderberry green tea paired with the elderberry honey. The green tea gives me a midday boost, and the honey gives the tea extra sweetness. I also put the honey in my morning coffee instead of creamer. So good. All Things Elderberry is my solution for staying healthy before traveling, avoiding frequent colds and sinus infections, really just maintaining my health all year round.
What sets this brand apart from the others is there are no artificial additives in All Things Elderberry. Their elixir is made with organic, Missouri-grown elderberries, raw honey, and whole spices.
Elderberries not only help with immune support, but may also slow the aging process with their powerful antioxidants, improve skin health, and can shorten the duration of severity of colds and flu.
Visit allthingselderberry.com to explore their full range of immune-supporting products. Stay healthy and feel your best naturally. Use our code GOLDIVY at checkout for 15% off your first order. That's code GOLDIVY at checkout for 15% off your first order.
We're coming at you with important information, warnings, and a solution. Sharing health and wellness gold with you is what we do. And so when we learned alarming information about devices that we routinely use, and we know you do too, we have to share it with you.
What most people don't realize is that the electronic devices we're using, cell phones, Wi-Fi, laptops, and Bluetooth, emit electromagnetic fields, or EMFs. The devices we're holding by our brains, on our skin, by our reproductive parts are emitting EMFs, and prolonged exposure to EMF radiation has been associated with potential health concerns, including neurological effects, impacts on reproductive health, and sleep disturbances.
Those studies alone are a cause for pause. But also, the International Agency for Research on Cancer that operates under the World Health Organization has classified non-ionizing EMFs produced by electronic products like cell phones, smart devices, and tablets a possible human carcinogen. Yikes.
And our solution? SafeSleeve. SafeSleeve anti-radiation products are designed to give you peace of mind of knowing you and your devices are protected while making your devices even easier to use. All of their anti-radiation products incorporate their lab-tested shielding technology that can block over 99% of RF and 92% of ELF radiation. And that's important because the vast majority of products that claim to block EMF radiation either don't have any testing at all, or they only block a small portion of the harmful frequencies.
We absolutely love the sleek look of these stylish products. They come in a variety of styles and colors. For our phone cases, I picked black, Andrea picked tan, and they include a built-in wallet with RFID protection and a magnetically detachable inner case. They're also anti-radiation products for tablets, iPad, and laptops.
We are pumped because we have been looking for a brand to help protect ourselves and our loved ones from this radiation for months. My kiddos have the iPad cases. Searching for a brand with stylish phone cases, colorful iPad colors, and functional headphones for our workouts, so that we can enjoy our devices, but also not have to worry about how they're harming us.
And without a doubt, it's time to protect ourselves. Grab your SafeSleeve phone case today and any of their other groundbreaking products at safesleevecases.com and use our code GOLDIVY
for 15% off.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the situation. So absolutely, you should have an individual therapist and a couples therapist. I will do sessions like this where I will meet with, I'll meet with the husband, I'll meet with the wife individually, and then I'll meet with them as a couple. And I'll do that. It kind of depends on what they've got going on, right? But if it's a pretty intense situation, I will meet with them 3 times that week. As we transition and we kind of get out of that crisis mode, then we will transition into like 1 week I'll meet with the husband, the next week I'll meet with the wife, and then we'll have a couple session, or I'll do husband, couple, wife, couple, husband, couple, and just kind of do that rotation.
Okay.
So that's an option, but also a lot of times what will happen is one person in the couple will already have an individual therapist, and that's totally fine.
Would you say they should each have a separate one then, and then you would be the one where they come together? So it's not like you're with one and so that person feels extra supported by you, or like you would gang up on the other one.
So I would never do, if I'm going to meet with one of you individually, I have to meet with the other one individually, because otherwise,
Makes sense.
that will happen where they will feel like, okay, now I feel like you're just ganging up on me. So if we're going to do individual sessions, I need to have equal time with each partner. But if you have your own individual therapist, then I would, let's say I'm meeting with a husband and a wife. Husband has his own individual therapist. They're coming to me for couples therapy, but the wife doesn't. I would recommend that the wife go and get an individual therapist on her own. And then what I would end up doing is contacting both of their individual therapists to make sure that we're all 3 on the same page.
Cool.
So that's one of the things that I would say is really important for if you have multiple therapists kind of in your life, to make sure that they are talking, so that you're getting that consistent message and we're all on the same page.
Love that.
And like, how much is that to juggle? Because I'm thinking, how much therapy is too much therapy when you're going through a trauma or crisis, and then you've got multiple parties involved? Like, for me, that just feels overwhelming. So how do you recommend people balance the getting help with not having it be even more stress on them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that you kind of work with your therapist to figure that out, right? If you're coming in each session and you're like, I am so stressed, I have so much going on, this is so overwhelming, then yeah, let's talk about that. Like, how do we scale this back so that you aren't doing so much? But also sometimes, like, when people are in full crisis, they need that, right? And they need to be there as much as they are. And being in therapy is the one place where they feel like their nervous system can settle down and they can move out of that crisis and they can relax a little bit. So I think it's really individualistic, and like each person needs an individual plan on what makes the most sense. But yeah, if you're coming in and saying, I just can't balance this all, then okay, how do we scale back?
I'm just thinking, like, you're telling someone everything, and then you're telling a marriage therapist, and then they're giving you homework. I can just see it being very overwhelming, and maybe it keeps people from wanting to get help because it is just one more thing to have to manage. And so you deal with marriage, family, but then also specific traumas. Will you talk a little bit about that and other specialties you have?
Yeah, so medical trauma is like what I specialize in, but I specialize in all traumas. So trauma is, when we think about trauma, so often people used to think that trauma was a car accident, was going to war, was a sexual assault, was these really big, significant events. And we always thought of trauma as something that was abnormal, right? So if somebody had a traumatic experience, they were abnormal. It was different. It was unusual for something like that to happen. Within trauma research, we have learned so much about how impactful and how prevalent trauma is actually in our lives. And we have learned that trauma is not about the event that happened, right? It's not the car accident. It's not the sexual assault that you experienced, but it's how your body is holding that event and how your body responded to it, right? So it's that internal wound is the trauma. It is not the event itself. And so once we've been able to kind of redefine that definition of trauma, we have learned and come to recognize that trauma is not abnormal. Trauma is normal. You are actually more abnormal if you have never experienced a trauma in your life. And so for me, what I like to do is I like to work with people, help them identify a lot of the traumas that they have, because you would be surprised at the number of people where I have to say, hey, what you experienced was traumatic. Like you have had a trauma, and people are like, but it's not that big of a deal. I didn't go to war. It wasn't, no, I'm fine. And I'm like, no, that was really, really hard. And we need to work on that. And we need to work on unsticking that part of yourself so that you can understand and see how a lot of the reactions that you're having today are because of this past event. They aren't really about the coffee that got spilled and now you're screaming at your kid. They are about something that happened a long time ago.
It's always deeper than that. The thing that you're arguing about, like, it's not about the dishes. It's about feeling like you're getting critiqued for everything you do, or it's like you don't help enough or whatever it is. I love that. I want to talk about connecting people to their physical to their mental, because I feel like we have these ailments, we have these illnesses that come up because we haven't addressed the trauma, right? Like you said, like it's how your body's responding to it. And so what's happening is you're getting sick more often because you are so stressed up here that it's affecting you physically. And, you know, there's a lot of, what's the word around mental health? Stigma. There's a lot of stigma around mental health, you know, having a mental health issue, like, oh, something's wrong with you. But it's like, we can all use more care when it comes to our mental health to also help our physical health. And so how do you help people kind of understand, like, you're probably getting sick more often. These things are probably happening to your body more because of the care that you're probably needing from these traumatic events or the trauma, however you experienced it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that can be tricky. And I think it really depends on the client, because sometimes it can feel a bit like wooey to go into that. And so it's really about getting to know the client, understanding what they experienced, opening their eyes, because again, a lot of people don't think that they've experienced trauma. Or they think, yeah, well, I've dealt with it, I'm fine. I don't, like, that's not really bothering me anymore. And they don't see how trauma has kind of, I mean, it can disguise itself in a lot of different ways. And so it's untangling that piece of it and then helping them understand there's kind of this psychoeducation piece of, okay, so now that we know what you've experienced and we can see this chronic stress, let's talk about how that's physically impacting you and the physical side of things with that. Yeah. And that's especially prevalent when we talk about medical trauma, right? Because so many people who have experienced medical trauma have a past trauma that they don't realize they're carrying, and they don't realize has, you know, when we have these past stressors, right, we can see all sorts of things happen. People who have had a traumatic experience are more likely to have cancer. They are more likely. I was reading something the other day. Oh, have you ever heard of the book, The Myth of Normal?
It sounds familiar, yeah.
It's a phenomenal book. It's really, really thick and really, really heavy, and it's really challenging topics, but it's by Gabor Mate, and it is phenomenal. Okay, so you know.
We talk about books all the time, so there's like a library of 50,000 that we have brought up before.
Yeah. I'm like, there's not enough time in the day to read everything I want to read.
Right.
So adding that to my list, though.
Yeah, it's a great read. Listen to it. That's how I've been able to do it. That's how I consume most of my books now, is just listening.
There's a book by him, When the Body Says No. I think that's the author.
Okay.
And I just listened to that, and it's a similar topic of stress and disease and
Yeah. But he talks a lot. I forgot where I was going with that, but he talks a lot about just the impact of traumas on our life and how they show up in physical form.
Yeah. Are there any like examples you can think of, like you said, people that, you know, it might be cancer? Have you seen it in any other way that you said it might like be disguised, and you're like, I never really considered that the stress of this could be impacting joint pain or, you know, something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time, and that it's a lot of times it's stomach stuff. So tummy issues.
No.
Yeah.
Couldn't be me.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be one of the places where it really shows up. Again, cancer, I think, is one where it shows up that there's something that's happened and you're holding on to all of this stress, and now it's showing up in different ways.
Okay, well, we have to talk about this because you've had cancer. Yes. So thinking about your personal experience, right? You're this very young person that gets diagnosed with cancer. And now you've had, you know, over a decade to kind of reflect on what that could have been for you. Like, do you feel like there's anything that you feel like, okay, that might have been what caused that in me?
Oh man, you know, that is I think the most common question for somebody who is recently diagnosed. When you are recently diagnosed, you want to know the exact moment that your body decided to betray you. Ooh. And you're like, was it the Cheeto that I ate? Was it because I used non-organic laundry detergent? Is it because I didn't eat right? Is it because my family had a dry cleaning facility that I grew up in, right? So was it the dry cleaning material, the chemicals that I was around? I grew up going to my grandparents' farm. Could it have been that, right? Like, we want these exact moments. And when you talk to the doctors about it, they're like, oh, we don't know why. It just is what it is. And you're like, but I need to know. And part of that experience is letting go of, you're not going to get to know. There are so many different things that can lead to to cancer showing up in our body, and we aren't going to get to know the exact thing that caused it. So I have all sorts of theories, and I think that there's probably a ton of different things that played a role in it. But I've also had to that's some of the work I've had to do for myself, is letting go of wanting to know the why. Because I'm not going to ever get a complete answer as to why this showed up in my body.
Yeah. Like acceptance, like it happened, we're here, we're okay now. And knowing the answer, I'm sure it's that balance. And I could see myself too being like hyper obsessive about like, okay, well now I got to be all organic. And now I have a child in the world. I don't want to get cancer again. So what's that journey like, trying to navigate not getting obsessive about not bringing it back into your life?
I mean, I threw away all my pans, and we went through all of it, and there had to be a balance, right? Yeah. I recognized, so my son was 2 just before 1, but before I was first diagnosed. And then when I got leukemia, I was like, he was 3. And so for me, I went, okay, because I did. I kind of became crazy. We were all organic. We were all everything. And I got to a point where I didn't feel like I could eat because I was so afraid that something that I was eating was going to be poisoning me and feeding the cancer. And so I had to work through that. And then when we would go out to the soccer fields or places, and he was, getting food that all of his friends were getting, I didn't want to create more anxiety for him around food and his health. So I had to kind of just work through it myself so that I didn't push that onto him. I mean, we still try and eat healthy, and we do the best that we can, but also recognizing, again, it wasn't because I had a Cheeto when I was a kid that caused the cancer. And so making healthy choices, doing smart things, but not taking it to the full extreme has been important for me.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think it's so easy, especially when you are a lifelong learner and you want to know these stats, and they're alarming and they're scary. And there's also evidence to support everything. So you're in this paralysis of what do I do? And so to have that with your education, your lived experience, working with people, everyone that's had medical trauma, I mean, I don't want to say everyone, but I can speak for myself. It's that how do you be normal? The myth of normal, right? When you know things, you can't unknow them. And so how do you have that healthy relationship? And I'm learning it's something that you have to decide what that looks like for you. Because then you bring finances into it, and you bring the wanting, the need to belong to your son's point. That's the stress of it for me, at least. I'm curious, what ways now are you taking care of yourself? How are you finding that balance with your mental health, your physical health? Of course, moving your practice to outside, I'm sure, has been a huge piece of that, but what else has been really helpful for you?
Yeah. Honestly, moving myself outside has been huge. On my full days, I can put anywhere from 12 to 15 miles in while I'm walking with clients. Wow. And that feels awesome. And to just be outside feels great. So that has been huge. Support network, I've got some great girlfriends that I absolutely love, and they have been huge for me. My husband's amazing. My kid's great. Soccer games. But just really getting back to a point of, I still think about cancer every single day. There isn't a day that goes by that doesn't cross my mind, but it is not controlling my everyday. And I think that is what's so important, is to be able to kind of fall back into a new routine, figuring out what my life looks like now that I am healthy and happy and doing good. So,
Okay, I want to talk about people that have been through trauma. Like you said, is a lot more people than you even think. People that are like, I don't know. I don't know if I need to talk about this, or I definitely know I went through something, but if I get a therapist, I'm going to have to relive it. I'm going to have to put myself back in the abuse or that part of my life that I've really tried to forget. Like, what would be the point of putting myself through that and sharing all those details that might be shameful or might be like something they've never told anybody? Can you kind of talk about why it's beneficial to get a therapist and maybe have to relive some of those really hard, painful parts of your life?
Yeah. You know, what's tricky with that is that when people think, okay, I'm going to go to work on my trauma, that I have to go back and revisit all of these really hard things. And I don't want to do that. Or what is the benefit? What's it going to do for me, right? One thing that I think is important to recognize is if you start that journey of healing your trauma, the goal behind it is not to forget the event, right? I'm not a magician. I can't make you forget it. And I'm not going to make it so that this wasn't a really hard time, right? Like you still are going to reflect back on this time of your life and go, wow, that was really hard. You're still going to have those feelings show up for you. And that's okay. Like that, we want that. But what the trauma work is healing so that trauma is not impacting your day, like your current day, time, here and now, right? So when trauma is really hard is when it's showing up in the present day and you're reacting to this past thing. And the trauma work is healing that so that when all of a sudden I have the big reaction because I spilled my coffee, right? And I can feel myself getting ready to explode, that I can create this pause and go, wait, I know what's happening here. This is trauma. I am safe. I am okay. I can take a deep breath. I can go for a walk. I can put my head in the freezer and calm down for a minute, and I don't have that big reaction. Or if I do have that reaction, because sometimes we don't have the ability to make that pause, right? We can't. Our reaction is so quick that we don't pause, that I can look back at that and say, okay, that was a trauma response. I don't need to beat myself up over this. I don't need to feel guilt or shame around that. I can say, I see where this came from. I understand that I had a traumatic response here, and I can forgive myself for that. And so I think that's really the work when we talk about doing trauma work, is getting to a point that you have that understanding. And we don't have to go back and relive those really hard memories, right? Like we can acknowledge that they were there. We can talk big picture about them. And then we can talk about how they're showing up in your life. One thing that I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about was with walk and talk therapy, how you were mentioning, Andrea, that when you run or when you're moving, right, that's where you're the most creative. So when we move, when we walk forward, what happens is we get this bilateral stimulation. Bilateral stimulation means that we're activating both sides of our body, right? So our right side and our left side. When we do that, we're creating a connection between the left side of our brain and the right side of our brain. How trauma is stored is trauma ends up getting stored in the right side of our brain. Our right side of our brain holds all of our emotions and our memories. And it's not connecting with the left side of our brain, which is the part of our brain that has the logic and our learning side of our brain. So when we have these big traumatic reactions, what's happening is the right side of our brain is taking over, and it feels like this is happening here and now. So when we do walk and talk therapy, we're moving, we're connecting the right side of our brain to the left side of our brain. And we are allowing our brain to say, okay, this happened in the past. This is a memory. This isn't happening here and now. I am safe now. I am okay. And so it allows our body to connect and process that and gets us unstuck. Similar to, I don't know if you guys have heard of EMDR, eye movement, eye movement, whatever. EMDR. Walk and talk therapy does the exact same thing as EMDR. So gets that bilateral stimulation.
That's so cool. We love learning about the brain.
I love that you called that out too, because even if you're not doing therapy, anyone who's been walking outside recognizes how healing it is, how they feel better after, no matter what.
Yep.
Brooke and I love learning about the brain. And I feel like sometimes people need like that tangible, like, why does this work in order to say yes to it? So I'm so happy that you explained that, and it makes me want to go for a run right now. But so I'm curious, if people want to find you, if they want to work with you, one question I have before you even tell them is like, could they walk and talk with you
Virtually.
So they're on a walk, but they're talking to you instead of like looking at you over the phone? Would that be a thing people could do?
I guess I don't know. I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
I would be concerned about, I don't know that I would be okay with that, to be honest. Just because from a safety standpoint, like I want you watching the road and or where you're walking, and I don't want you to fall.
No, but if they had headphones in and they're just talking to you, like walking on a walking trail.
I like to see you.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm kind of weird. Some therapists will do that, but I like to be able to see, because I pick up a lot of just facial expressions, body language. And so on a rare occasion, I'll do it. But most of the time I want to either be able to see your face or be walking with you.
Okay, cool. Well, I just think that's interesting to know like how this works. And I'm so happy you explained it and the benefits of it. So if people are like, okay, I want to find you on a trail, I want to work with you, or I'm not in the state, but I want to do some like virtual appointments, where can people find you to work with you?
Yeah, so if somebody wanted to find me, they could find me at WanderWellMN.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at WanderWell Therapy, or you can find me on Psychology Today as well.
Cool.
So.
I love Psychology Today too. And like I said, you can read people's bios on it, and you can see if you're like covered by insurance. And so I love that you're on that as well. And again, as always, we will plug everything in our show notes. So you can just click on the website or click on our Instagram handle. And we want to get into the 3 gold stars, all the good stuff. I cannot wait because I have more questions for you. So if you were to share your 3 gold stars today with our audience, what would you say?
I think first of all, get outside, nature, trees, spend that time, heal your immune system. There are so many. One of the great things about this that I've experienced is finding all of the fun parks in Minnesota. We have so many cool parks that as I'm walking with clients, they just don't even realize are out there. So yeah, get outside, find a local park, spend out time out there. Second one that I would say is, if you are feeling like you have trauma or you have something, take the leap, do it. You will not regret it. It will be hard. And I think that sometimes people forget that they start therapy and go, this is supposed to make me feel better and I'm feeling worse. And that's normal, right? That's to be expected. That yes, it is going to be hard for a little while. We are going to feel worse, but ultimately you're going to get to a point of feeling better.
And all your relationships will benefit from it as well.
Right. Yeah. Like there's so many benefits to it. And then the third piece that I would highlight, kind of what we talked about earlier, is find somebody that you click with, right? We know from like a research-based standpoint that if you have a strong connection with your therapist, you are significantly more likely to experience a positive change through therapy. So it is documented. It is the number one most important thing when it comes to therapy being successful is if you have a connection with your therapist. So don't be afraid to bounce around. It might take a couple of tries, but finding somebody that is a good fit for you is critical to your success in therapy.
I love that. I mean, you're just more likely to share. Right. Right? You think about being vulnerable. Like if I don't know, if I don't like you, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah,
I don't want to be open and honest.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Unleashing Ivy. So just some more surprise questions we're curious about. I want to know, someone listening is like, okay, I know I need therapy. I'm saving for it. It's not in the budget right now. What can I do right now that you would recommend to help?
So a couple of things. First of all, again, get outside, go for a walk, move your body. We know so much about the importance of movement and how it can help us heal, how it helps us just burn through the excess cortisol that we have in our body, the excess adrenaline, all of that. So that would be one area that I would recommend. There are a ton of resources out there for affordable therapy. So if you are looking for a therapist, if you don't have insurance, there are quite a few places that you can go that offer affordable therapy, or you can reach out to a lot of therapists will offer a sliding scale. So you can talk to a therapist. They will say on their website, we offer a sliding scale, and they are going to be willing to work with you on finding a price point that you feel comfortable with. So I think that's another thing to just highlight is that, yes, it can be expensive. part of it too, though, is that you do want to invest in this. Like, it's important to invest in your mental health. You know, are there other areas that you can scale back on? Maybe not going out for coffee. Maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't know what everybody's financial situation looks like, but there are ways to start that, or to make that fit within your
I mean,
budget.
it's a cost that you're not used to spending money on. So I feel like it is a big barrier, but I think it's a mindset to shift of like, first of all, if you go into psychology today, you can message the therapist and be like, I'm vibing with you. Do you do a sliding scale? These are my, 3 top goals in therapy, but like, I do have a barrier with money. Could I do a payment plan or a sliding scale or something? Like, can't hurt to throw that out there.
Right. And everyone who is a therapist got into this to help people. So we don't want money to be that barrier that is going to cause you not to be able to do it. So even if they say, you know what, I don't have a sliding scale, or I do have a sliding scale, but there's a max number of people that I can take on in this, at this point, and I'm full, they're going to be happy to make recommendations. So always reach out, ask. I think what you said there too, Andrea, of like, these are my 3 goals, being able to identify what it is you're coming to therapy for. And I notice that a lot when people come to therapy, they'll sit down and I'm like, okay, so what do we want to work on? And they're like, I don't know. And you're going to get a lot more out of it if you come to your sessions prepared. You know what you want to talk about. You know what your goals are, what you're hoping to get from this, because it not only does it give you an idea of what you're working on, but it gives your therapist the idea, and it helps just provide that direction and make sure that we're all on the same path.
Yeah. And to give you an idea of a goal, if you're like, I don't know what my goals would be, what do you ruminate about constantly? When you think about having inner peace, what's the thing that's like, oh, I'm always thinking about this thing? What is that thing that you want more peace with? It could be a relationship, could be finances, could be body image. It could be anything that you just feel like you're constantly thinking about, it's consuming you. What would you pay to get rid of that? Because like, I put a lot of money on something that would help me have some more peace.
What's the cost of keeping life like that, living like that? Yeah,
right. Totally.
And you don't have to have a perfectly defined goal coming to a therapist, right? Like, we are more than happy to help kind of define what that goal looks like and really kind of clean it up and put it into, a nice concise sentence of what it is that we're working on. So don't let that be the thing that doesn't cause you to go to therapy, that fear of like, I don't know how to define my goal. But exactly like you said is, what is it that I'm thinking about? What am I worried about? What is kind of, when I open my mouth, I just want to out there to the world. And a therapist will help you put that into a nice goal to work on.
Yeah, your mental health is everything. Okay, my question has to do with medical trauma and thinking about people that have been through something really serious like you have, and also living with a spouse, having kids, and dealing with their worries of it. They're concerned if you're eating a Cheeto after you've had a cancer. They're worried. They're watching what you're doing, and they're like, ugh. And so how do you balance their worries on top of your own, or their questions, or their grief, or, whatever that might be, in the midst of maybe not even knowing what you're going to be diagnosed with? How do you handle and balance other people's emotions in the midst of that?
I think that is one of the hardest things for somebody who has a diagnosis. You spend a lot of time worrying, yes, you think about yourself, how am I going to be impacted by this? But in reality, so much of your fear is, how is everybody else handling it, right? How is my husband handling it? How is my kid? I mean, my kid at that point was 3, but you think about a little 3-year-old. For me, he was a little over 1 when I had my mastectomy, right? And I wasn't able to pick him up. That was the hardest thing for this little kid who had, all of a sudden, mom, who was the person who would always scoop him up, I couldn't hold him. So for 6 weeks, I would have to sit on the floor and he'd have to crawl into my lap. And when I remember times where he was really, really sad and all he wanted for me to do was pick him up, and I couldn't. I wasn't able to do that. So you see just how this cancer or this diagnosis has created just chaos for everybody else in your life. And you watch them try to be strong and okay and handle it, because they don't want to burden you and you don't want to burden them. And so, if you get a diagnosis, first thing you should do, get mental health. Obviously go to the doctor, right? Like, that's the first place you should go. But then make sure that you're prioritizing your mental health so that when you get to the other side of this, it doesn't wallop you, because it will. And I have seen it time and time again from clients who have come in. I experienced it myself, that you get to the other side, you're supposed to feel good, and you are just sad and depressed. And then help your family, help your friends find that support as well, because they also need a safe space where they can go and talk about their fears. Because it's really hard to show up to somebody and say, hey, I'm really afraid that you're going to die.
Yeah.
Right? Like, nobody wants to talk about it. The person who's sick doesn't want to talk about the fact that I might die, because that's going to freak out my people. My people don't want to talk to me about the fact that I might die, because they don't want to put that out into the universe. And so we all sit there with this like icky feeling in our stomach and in this fear that we don't have anywhere to go with. And so finding somebody who can listen and you can just talk about your worst fears and, you know, get that out there is so important.
Great advice.
Yeah, as you're speaking, all I'm thinking is there's no way you can't argue that the mind and body aren't connected. Right? Like you're going through something so physical like cancer or a medical diagnosis. How could it not affect your mental health? Like, of course you need the support when it comes to your mental health, not just for you, but for your family. Like, when you think about how big of an event that is, like mental health, it should be every doctor's recommendation. Here is a referral for a therapist. Like, that needs to be the norm. So I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah. You know, and most doctors are amazing. I am so grateful for all of my doctors, all of my nurses. Like, they were phenomenal throughout this process. But yeah, they're focused on your physical, right? And in all honesty, you get this diagnosis, and most people just buckle down and say, okay, what do I need to do? Next step, next step, next step, right? And we don't feel like we can find the time to fit in a therapy appointment, or like trying to juggle all of that feels like another thing I have to do. But if you don't, like, it is going to get you somewhere down the road. And it is so hard, and it's so annoying to be done with all of the treatment and to feel so crappy is really, really hard. And I will say, so like I said, I did not have a therapist when I went through breast cancer. I did have one when I went through leukemia. I still got done with all of my leukemia stuff, and like, it was hard. I'm not saying that it just magically, I was all sunshine and rainbows on the other side of that. But I felt significantly better having had that support and working with people who were in like I said, I had a social worker and a therapist who were in the medical field and had that understanding. And so that level of support was so different and so refreshing for me. It was huge. So.
All right, last question. Sometimes we mix up how we ask this, and I'm just so curious because we haven't totally touched on this. If you could think of a client story, I know obviously you can't share, but like the most rewarding client success that you've had from kind of talking through all kinds of different traumatic events, like what comes to your mind when you think about not necessarily specifically what they went through, but how they were able to kind of get on the other side of a traumatic event or experience?
Yeah. Oh man, I've had some amazing clients that have done some amazing things. Like, I truly, you know, people probably wonder, oh, does my therapist think about me when I leave the room, right? Like, am I their favorite? You know, we all have those thoughts. And I can confirm for all of you that we do. Like, I spend on my own personal walks when I'm out on my own, I spend a significant amount of time thinking about my clients and worrying about them and hoping and cheering for them. You know, I have had clients that I don't work with anymore who have sent me wedding pictures. They've sent me baby pictures. I get so excited when I hear that people are doing well. And one of the hardest things is when clients say, okay, I think I'm done. And I'm like, that's amazing. And I'm so sad I'm not going to get to hear how this all turns out, right? Because I do, like, I think about people a lot. I love people. I care a lot about them. And so, yeah, I don't know, like, I have a million different success stories that I want to share details about, but I know I'm not allowed to. That's another unique part about being a therapist, is that we drop into people's lives for 50 minutes a week, and we hear the hard things, we hear the wins, we hear the love stories, all of that, the relationships that are being built. And then they leave, and we don't get to go anywhere with it. You know, I come home and my husband's like, oh, how was your day? And I'm like, it's good.
Can't tell you anything.
Yep. And that was probably the biggest change for us in our relationship with me becoming a therapist, because I used to come home and I would tell him all about my day. And now I'm like, I saw a sandhill crane while we were walking. Or a cedar waxwing was really cool. But I can't tell him about the cool moments that happen with my clients. And there are a lot of them. And I mean, people are just amazing. How people are able to go through some really hard stuff, and they are resilient and they are strong and they are still able to find joy with the challenges that they've been through. And we laugh a lot and we cry and all of it. So yeah, I don't know if I really.
No, it's a tricky thing because you can't, do specifics, but I think it just highlights, and I'm glad that you were able to reflect on that, because I think when people are picking out a therapist, they need to hear the human behind it, and just hearing your heart and just why you're doing the work you're doing, why you started this, the fact that you've been through so much. I think that's what people are looking for. I know when Brooke and I have picked out like coaches or therapists, like Brooke was specifically like, I really want to work with Catherine because she's been through like chronic illness and she gets what I've been through. Right. And it's just knowing people and hearing what they've been through and that you care so much. And maybe you'll be like my therapist, where the other day I saw her getting her hair done and I was like, oh, Mercy. I was like, oh, you changed my life and I've missed you, so maybe that'll happen to you when you're getting your hair done sometime somewhere.
Yes, I have run into people out in the wild every once in a while.
Yeah.
Which is always interesting. But
yeah. Well, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you because you could just sit with these life lessons you've learned or know that, therapy helped you, but now you're the person that's helping someone else. And so I'm just so happy, because being a business owner is not easy. It requires you to wear a lot of different hats, especially when you're getting started. And I'm just like, I hope you're so proud of yourself. And I know your son is going to be so proud of the work that you do, and to be able to hear this and hear like in the midst of you newly in your business and what it's turning into. I'm so happy too that you shared this with our audience and that they have the opportunity to work with you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to see you go. I want to walk with you. I'm going to be honest. But we leave our listeners with a piece of gold, a quote. Would you please send us off with a quote of yours?
Yeah. So this quote comes from psychologist Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose. And in our response is our growth and our freedom.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.
We want to thank you and encourage you to celebrate yourself for taking the time to learn and get inspired in your one beautiful life. And if this podcast means something to you, it would mean so much to us if you'd be willing to take 30 seconds to help support our mission to keep bringing you inspiring stories and guests.
First, following the podcast is important because it helps you never miss an episode. To do this, just go to the Ivy Unleashed podcast show page on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then just tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow.
While you're there, if you'd be so kind to give us a 5-star rating and review and share your favorite episode with a friend, we'd be so grateful for your support.
We are thrilled you're here and are so happy that you're taking time to prioritize your wellness, self-discovery, and growth with us. Additionally, we want to remind you that this podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We are not licensed therapists, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.